best situation for a planet in a chart is for it to be interacting with its friends, the other planets it considers its friends, and having few planets it considers its enemies also affecting it. And that means by conjunctions, by aspects, and by sign placements. And these are the logitati avashtas, or the condition of each planet, to see how healthy it can be expressed in a person's life, psychologically, and in all other modes that a planet is working through us. So each force of our consciousness, each planet, you can think of it as having an agenda. And it performs its agenda better when its friendly planets are helping it. So in this video, we're going to be talking about Saturn's two friends, Mercury and Venus. And if you'd like to know your logitati avashtas, you can find them at my website. You can find them in the report that I make, which is on my website, jmvedic.com. It's a very extensive part of that written report. So today we're talking about what I call the dynamic duo of Mercury and Venus, how these two Rajasic planets that we are using to optimize our material lives, how they're helping the Saturnian consciousness. So first with Mercury. Mercury is the planet of experimenting with life, with investigating objectively certain facts and how things work. It's also of communication and maximizing your opportunities. So how is it helping Saturn, which is the planet of limitations and weaknesses? So think about how hard existence would be if there was only one way to get things done, or if we're stuck on something. There's only one single way of getting out of being stuck, one mode of action. And if we're unable to do that for whatever reason, it just increases the pressure load on us, the stress that accumulates, the burden, the sense of burden, if we can't do that one option. So it's like having a tunnel vision and only seeing one option, or seeing no options at all. It can be a very defeating frame of mind. That's how a person with Saturn without Mercury helping it would feel like. There's only one way, and that way I can't seem to do it. But when Mercury's helping Saturn, the person's naturally going to look for many ways to get out of a tough situation. And tough situations specifically, because we're talking about Saturn, situations that show us our limitations and show us our weaknesses. But Mercury's saying, okay, we're in a tough position, we're in a tough spot. Have you tried doing this? Okay, that didn't work. Another option would be doing this, or a combination of that and this and this and that. So on a very simple level, Mercury is helping us maximize our ability to see options when we're in trying times. And that's one of the best things that we can have, is to be able to see many ways to look at a situation, and to also see many ways to get out of a situation. So another really interesting way that Mercury is helping Saturn. Think about a starting point when, say, if you go to therapy, or you're in a difficult life situation, or you kind of hit this roadblock and you're contemplating. You ask yourself, or another person or a therapist asks, what do you want? And what would be the best possible situation considering these circumstances? People get so wound up in their problems that they forget to ask themselves these very basic questions. What do you want? What is it really that you're trying to get out of this? And sometimes people, they don't really know exactly what they want specifically. On a mundane level, they're confused, or even on a big life path level, I'm not sure exactly what I want. But it's a key question, and we all have to ask ourselves that, even with regards to spiritual things. But something that I've learned throughout my life, I remember hitting a certain point and realizing this realization, which was, it's just as valuable to know what you don't want. And you might not have any clue about what you want, but when you are clear about what you don't want, you're already setting yourself up on what can become a healthy path. And that realization, it comes from trying things out, experimenting with things. That's what Mercury does. To be able to experiment with the path, or to be able to just see how something is going to work. And when you get to a point when you're realizing it's not working, and you're realizing that situation or that experience, it's just not for me, but you have to go through it, the mercurial process of trying it out. Because if you're not experimenting, and if you're not, say, seeing what the possibilities are for a certain thing, whatever it may be, and you just say, and you don't, try and experiment, you just say, I don't want that. And then one day you come and realize, oh wow, I guess I really did want that. I just never gave it a chance, and you have regret for not even experimenting with it. But a good Mercury, it doesn't shut itself off from experiences. It's going to give an experience a go, and it's not going to, just assume that something isn't going to work for you. So it's knowing what's not right for me is how Mercury is helping Saturn. Saturn is what we're not, and our limitations. Mercury can give it a go, give it a shot, but then you realize, oh, it's not for me because I tried it out, and therefore I'm going to avoid that thing. So it's very helpful to know what you want to avoid, and to know what you're going. It's just as valuable to know what you don't want than it is to know exactly what you do want. So say, for example, you want to become a lawyer, and you jump headfirst into becoming, say, you go to law school, you graduate, and you want to become a prosecutor. And you get into your first jobs and you realize, wow, this job is tons of paperwork. And that's the majority of what it is. It's not like on TV with these high intensity situations at a trial, or strategizing with other lawyers in these high stakes situations. You basically, the reality of what you find out your job as a lawyer is handling documents, and it's far less exciting. And I bring this example up because a lot of people, when I was young, thought that I would become a lawyer, and then I would become a politician. But I found myself in a situation with a lot of lawyers, and I noticed, wow, they're really just shuffling paper around all day and dealing with technicalities and filing away documents, and it's really kind of a boring job. And so I realized I didn't want to spend my entire day and my entire life doing that. So a good Saturn being helped by Mercury is going to go through life situations, and it's gaining experiences, and it's able to say, wow, I don't want that in my life. And there are some qualities that I could like, but there are other really important things that I don't like. And as I said, you have to have these experiences to understand what you don't want. And so a healthy Saturn is able to distinguish between these positive aspects of an experience and then the negative ones, and then to avoid those negative ones. So it's multiplying and compartmentalizing the different aspects of each experience, and being able to sift away parts of an experience that you don't want to do, and to avoid at all costs on a very practical level. And so it really comes down to being able to see life and see experiences from many different angles. Mercury helps us differentiate things, and to not just put to generalize something, to put everything, to put a concept into and to put all eggs into one basket, or to make assumptions that include all possibilities into one single experience. Experiences are really multifaceted, and the more that we understand the different facets of an experience, the more we can see parts of an experience that are just not for us, and then to avoid those things. And this is a very practical process. So both Mercury and Saturn are very practical planets. They both rule Tamasic earth signs. And so a person with a healthy Saturnian consciousness, with that help from Mercury, the planet of skills and being able to gain new dynamic abilities, these people are going to be able to see with an objective eye the truth of things in a very detached way that isn't interjecting their personal feelings, and also interjecting their fears and insecurities about what simply is true. So these people with a healthy Saturn are able to sift through information during that investigative process and eliminate unimportant information and focus on what is important. So it goes along with what I've just been explaining about how to really get down into the nitty-gritty of details and sift out key things that are important and unimportant, and to be able to have that kind of mind for detail, but at the same time using it to avoid what could eventually become problematic for you. And that's what a healthy Saturn does in general. It helps us to to realize what is not us on a very simple level, and to do our best to minimize those experiences as much as possible. Mercury gets into those details and is able to really differentiate on a very minute level and to help us get through situations that could otherwise be difficult. And a great way that Mercury helps Saturn is because Mercury is the planet of friendships, and how we make friends with other people, and how we're able to communicate with people on that one-to-one, that friendly basis. So healthy Saturn sees that I simply can't deal with all of my problems on my own. Maybe I should go ask a trusted friend or an associate for some advice about it. So having people in our lives who we can ask for help and support us is a way to diminish the burdens and to lessen the weight on our shoulders with whatever kind of situation we're dealing with. Just bringing other people into the situation when we can, bringing Mercury, bringing friends to help us deal with the problem. It's a really simple and practical calculation we can make. And Saturn is also this planet of existential problems and ideas or concepts that we're going to have to grapple with over a long period of time. So that's why when it's unhealthy, an unhealthy Saturn can make a person very nihilistic and pessimistic. And I was in a frame of mind when I was in university at one point, and I decided, I don't remember exactly what it was about, but it was this kind of existential kind of thing about meaning and not sure about a life path. And so I decided I'm going to go to a therapist. The university just offers free therapy, and just go and you can talk to somebody. And so I went to this therapist. I'd never met her before and never seen her. And this was a neutral party, so it wasn't a friend, but it was someone who I could ask for about objective information. So mercurial, objective perspective on something. And it was only after about a half an hour that I started feeling way better. And basically all I had to do was work something out in my head and talk it out with the person. And all of a sudden, through that communication with a person who could be objective, I just felt a lot better. I never had to go back. I just, oh wow, that was all I really needed. I just really needed to talk about whatever problem I was having. So both Mercury and Saturn they rule air signs. Mercury rules Gemini and Saturn rules Aquarius. And air signs are signs of communication and collaborating with other people. So a healthy Saturn isn't going to bury themselves into themselves and which can make a person feel depressed and down on themselves. But instead, healthy Saturn is going to find ways through problems with the help of other people, whether it's associating one with a large group with like interests, which is a very Aquarian method, or communicating in terms of doing, say, kind of an art form, or finding an art form being a way to communicate your inner creativity to other people, which would be more of a Gemini way of going through it. And Gemini is just it's a very interpersonal sign. It's a sign that enjoys interaction with other people in general on a one-to-one basis. And it's the sign of cities. Gemini rules cities where you have masses of people and masses of opportunities to create human connections. And so what I mean to say is that this is a very simple way that Mercury helps Saturn. And another kind of mundane example would be, say, again, I have a Saturnian problem. I'm not good at something. Say, not good at doing my taxes. I'm going to reach out to an accountant to help me do my taxes. And so I can avoid problems with my taxes. It's avoiding a potential problem. That's a really healthy Saturnian way. You're reaching out to another person who has skills that you don't and bringing them into a situation rather than accumulating more burdens onto you, say, having to do your taxes, but being bad at doing them, being it very time consuming. So bringing other skillful people into your life, Mercury, the planet of skills, bringing them into your life and to help you accomplish things in a skillful way that you otherwise aren't good at or don't want to do. So that is, Mercury is a best friend of Saturn because Saturn is such kind of there's kind of a heaviness to Saturn. Mercury lightens that load. Mercury is this dynamic and kind of quick-witted and charismatic and able to and able to get into the details of the dark cloud that Saturn can be and start to sift through and see things from a more objective perspective. And so to help enlighten the load that Saturn can make us feel. So this next relationship, the second friend of Mercury, is one of my favorite Lajatadhyavastra relationships. It's Venus being friends with Saturn. And Venus is the only planet that treats Saturn as a friend. Every other planet treats Saturn as an enemy or as just neutral. But Venus actually enjoys Saturn. I call it the beauty and the beast. It's an unlikely pairing. And so I like to think about why, and we've talked about this previously. And also remember that Venus's sign exalts Saturn. That's Saturn's favorite sign to be in. And this relationship also works when Venus is giving an aspect to Saturn and when Saturn is in Venus's other sign, Taurus. So what is happening when Saturn is receiving the rays of Venus? So firstly, it's softening Saturn up, and it helps the Saturnian part of our consciousness to feel a little bit less beat up by life, that our suffering has recourses in some way, and that there is kind of an eternal balance between happiness and pain. Life isn't all pain. So a healthy Saturn consciousness, being helped by Venusian consciousness, it doesn't get overwhelmed with the inevitable sufferings of life. And these people know how to seek things outside of them that give them comfort when times are tough materially and psychologically. That's what Venus does in our consciousness. It looks for things in the world that we can receive to us that make us feel better, taken care of by life, feel rejuvenated, feel entertained by life, feel comforted and nourished by life. Outside things that we can add into our life. The moon, on the other hand, why the moon is the enemy to Venus, that loving support system also needs to come from within us. That's the lunar part of our consciousness. We need to have self-love. We need to derive happiness from within as well. But another part of life is Venus, bringing things in that make our lives easier, that make us feel good. And a very simple example for Venus is good food and bringing nourishing food into our life that rejuvenates us. So also, Venus is the force in our consciousness that is evaluating options in front of us. And so Venus gathers, Mercury gathers options, and then Venus starts evaluating the options in order to make an informed decision, to choose something that makes our life work better. So Venus is the planet of good decision making. A healthy Venus makes decisions that one can devote oneself to, which is similar to Mercury. Mercury is expanding our options, expanding available decisions, but eventually we need to make that decision. So Venus gives, when Venus is helping Saturn, it gives Saturn the ability to make decisions that are minimizing our pain and to help us avoid problematic situations in the future. And it comes down to knowing what's right and what's wrong for us. Again, some things just aren't for us. We have to know those things about us. We have to have that Saturnian understanding of, this is just not me. I'm just not fit for this. And so I'm not going to make decisions that put me in situations where I have to deal with it. That's what a good Venus is doing. It's helping Saturn just to realize and to make informed decisions on, that's not going to work out for me. I just know it. It's just going to cause problems. It's going to cause me more stress. So I'm going to do my best to avoid that situation. So Venus is helping Saturn give a kind of holistic fulfillment that is going to work long term. Saturn being the planet of time, of the long term, and that holistic fulfillment of making good decisions on avoiding what is not us is going to make us happy long term as well. It's not a temporary jolt of positivity that wears off really quick. That's that short-term decision making that feels good now, but it's going to hurt later. No, a healthy Saturn is going to see the bigger picture and how making good decisions is important for long-term happiness. And I also mentioned in the previous video about how the moon, when the moon is hurting Saturn, how Saturn treats the moon as an enemy, the person's going to be seeking validation for their flaws. their problems. I have a problem, validate my problem and say, I'm good because I have a problem, rather than trying to adapt and fix the problem and becoming a better person and saying, look, I got through a problem and I deserve validation because I no longer have that problem. Venus is kind of the opposite of that toxic lunar way of thinking, like, I have a problem and you need to validate that problem and like me because like me because I'm defective at something. So what Venus is helping Saturn to do is that Venus is saying that, okay, a person understands that we are worthy of love despite our flaws and not because of the flaws. And that even more so, other people are worthy of love despite their flaws and their shortcomings. So a good, healthy Saturn being helped by Venus, these people know that no one is perfect, obviously, and they can focus on parts of that person that are very valuable and positive, rather than honing in on the weaknesses of another person. So it softens the gaze, the person with the healthy Saturn, it softens their gaze onto other people and in the relationships that they're forming, and they're able to see the good and generate positive feelings about them, and while still seeing that they have flaws, but still giving them a chance, loving them despite them, and really embodying the good piece of advice of focusing in 90% of your attention onto a person you have a relationship with, of things you like about them, and boosting those things you like, and say 10% of your attention on things that maybe they need to improve, or offering them advice on something that they need to get better at. So you're not ignoring the problems, or you're not ignoring their bad habits, but you're emphasizing the good qualities within them and then building on them. And then that long-term process of, let's boost together our positive qualities. And one thing I really love about this combination, which I talked about in the Venus video about Venus being friends, treating Saturn as a friend, it's being able to see beauty in uncommon places and being able to see beauty in the mundane aspects of life. And I call this the natural beauty combination. And it gives, when Venus is being helped by Saturn, it helps a person, wear, say, less makeup, be able to emphasize their natural qualities that are beautiful and that don't require superficial additions. People are just beautiful for who they are. And despite flaws, we have these amazing parts about us. So the way that Saturn gets helped by Venus when it comes to beauty is that it sees that a big part of our human experience is going through hardships and emerging on the other side stronger and more capable. And so these people with the healthy Saturn are looking for that strength in other people, and then that is what they find most beautiful about them and appreciate about them for their accomplishments despite the odds being against them. That is how they see other person as beautiful, as how they are resilient and how they find the ways to, say, fight and tough out a difficult situation. They're not looking for a flawless person, a physically flawless person, or a psychologically flawless person. And, because when you see a physically flawless person, it's almost like, that there's something wrong with them, but they're trying to hide it. Or they're really trying to make up for something within them by using their superficial features to an exaggerated extent. And I like to think about how when Venus is helping Saturn, this person is going to look at the scars of a person that they've accumulated and see the parts of them that have been damaged by the difficulties of life, and realize that all of those scars, they all tell a story, and it tells a story about a more complete picture of who they are. And that there's this beauty in overcoming suffering, that there's this beauty in being able to say, I got through that and I'm stronger because I got through that. A person, there is no kind of beauty in, there are no movies about life being perfect and no problems happening. the beauty of a story is the hero's arc, the ability to go through the difficulties and triumph at the end. That's what makes all stories beautiful. And so a healthy Saturn is really appreciating that aspect of a person, to see the more complete picture of them that includes the difficulties they've gone through, and really wanting to get to know the person about what they've gone through, and to see them on that kind of bigger picture. And they're going to naturally be interested in romantic relationships with people that have that resilience within them. And of course, as you probably could have guessed, this combination of Venus helping Saturn gives that resilience for the relationship itself, and they're not going to give up on the other partner during down periods. So it's so important, that phrase, in sickness and in health, when you say at a wedding, when you give your vows, because sickness means those Saturnian periods of hardship, and when a partner matters most to help weather that storm. And both people are expected to pick up the reins when the other person may be too weak to keep moving on, and to be that crutch when the person needs it. So a nice healthy Saturn is a rock for their partner when times are really difficult, and helping them be that support system when they're going through a difficult period of time. And of course, a nice healthy Saturn wants a long-term relationship. They want to be able to get to know a person on, again, that holistic level. They want to be able to look at the long road, or the long term when it comes to partnerships. And that could be with business as well. Obviously, you want to establish a business partnership where both people are benefiting, that you are perpetually benefiting, and that let's make this agreement as long as we can. Let's keep it going for as long as possible. Let's be prosperous together. And that's a nice healthy Saturn, being able to take those, see those good, appreciate those qualities in people that they've only gained through going through difficult experiences, loving them for those things, for having built that strength, and then seeking to continue on over the long term to be able to mutually benefit one another. That's what Venus does. It's about a mutual benefit. Saturn adds a really strong durability to a person, and it gives this overall ability to be, durable and strong when a partner, especially when a partner needs you to be durable and strong.